Greetings shippers, welcome back. It's time for another edition of Fic Rec Friday. This is the series where we go through a series of recs. They can be about anything. All types of recs welcome here, from the odd to ships that could be considered rivals, crack, something that might be considered problematic, angst, just everything. You can expect to find all kinds of things here. As always, before we get started, let it be said that this is not a bashing zone. If a fic doesn't sound like it will be for you, well, hopefully one of the other recs will, or of course, perhaps one of the many suggestions that people have been leaving down in the comments will be. Different strokes for different folks, ship and let's ship. And there's absolutely no reason to seek anybody out and harass them. Each time the disclaimer gets faster, I'm very excited about that. So we have our usual 5 fics to get to, and one suggested by a viewer down in the comments. And there's gonna be many more of those, because you guys have been leaving some pretty awesome suggestions. Quickly, before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media so you can stay up to date, and of course just come on over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. And now, without further ado, let's get to what you all came here for. Let's get to these recs. Our first rec is going to take us to a fandom that we actually haven't talked a lot about on this channel, which is very surprising because it is a massive one and a shipping fandom juggernaut and just general fandom juggernaut. There are a lot of different types of fans for this series. I'm talking about Doctor Who. Now, Doctor Who has massive fickable potential from a variety of angles. You have all of the crossovers that people are working through, and these are both canon and fanon versions. And then of course you have all the various different iterations, the different doctors, the different companions. And then on top of that, you have the various iterations and crossovers of the doctors with themselves. Now this has long been a popular concept, but is not always accepted in the canon depending upon which era you're working with. It's just some versions are well received and some are not. And of course there are certain characters that fans would love to see meet that simply can't at this time. In some cases because of death or contracts or just a lot of things can get in the way of making certain things happen. And that is exactly where fandom comes in. This fic is a crossover fic of a certain era doctor and another era master. So first, let us lay the groundwork. And of course, this means spoilers. I'm not sure where everybody is in Doctor Who. There are many places to fall in or off or on. There's just a lot of Doctor Who out there, so just to be safe. Spoilers. This takes place after season 3, episode 13 of the 10th Doctor series, that being the end of the Sim Master arc. That arc was traumatizing for a lot of people, particularly those who cared a lot about the relationship that was being presented between this era's Doctor and Master, that being the era at that time, not the time of this recording. And there were lots of people who wanted to work through it in different ways. During this era, there was one bittersweet fic that ended up being written about the 10th Doctor and the Ainley Master. This fic was called Lost to February by Medley. 1 chapter, word count 586. It deals with a broken doctor just needing to find some comfort somewhere in the universe and going back to meet with his enemy and find that comfort. It's a short piece, but it's very well written and very emotive. You just feel a lot. At the same time, it's this beautiful exploration of what the canon actually means, what it means to be able to travel through time, to know somebody through eras, to know somebody through different forms and different iterations. Even though it's such a short fic, it really manages to capture all of those things quite beautifully. So if you're interested in seeing a cross between two characters you may not have considered before, as well as working through some of those bittersweet, sad morning feelings of that time, which of course we moved on from because the Doctor Who canon is nothing if not ever in motion and confusing, and at times angering. However, if this sounds like it is up your alley, then please check it out. Next up, we're gonna hop over into the video game realm for fic number 2. We're gonna head over into the Detroit Become Human fandom. Now, while people will argue about how good the canon of Detroit Become Human is, it does have a very strong fan base, and a lot of people who have become very attached to the characters as well as the story, even if it did have areas where it could be worked through better, and some did find some aspects offensive. However, the fandom has absolutely exploded with many beautiful fics and art, and a bicycle has arisen. And in this case, it's Connor, the android sent by Cyberlife. You can find pairing fics for Connor with pretty much every character. The pairing in question for this fic is not one of the most popular for Connor. However, it does have a decent following. We're talking about the pairing of Connor and Campski. This fic is called Hydrangeas by Hyodio. It is 20 chapters and its word count is 174,524. That's right, it's a long one, a multi-part epic, and it's complete, so you don't have to worry about any stress about whether or not it's going to be finished. It's done. This fic is a post-game fic, this being post the game's best ending, and an exploratory piece that really expands upon Campsi's character. For while there is some groundwork laid within the video game, it is a lot of philosophical jargon and it doesn't really dive down into what the character really thinks, and so a lot of that is worked through within the fiction. This deals with a Connor who is very much trying to find his place in the world, navigate his new human emotions, and still make himself useful to the revolution. He is sent to gather information from Campski, as there are still some who are very interested in reining androids back under their control. Underneath this bigger conspiratorial plot element is the relationship between Connor and Campski, and how it evolves from creation to something a lot more complex. Something much more. This indeed does have some smut later on, but it is very tastefully handled and feels like it works itself well into the plot. In other words, it doesn't feel superfluous, although of course there are some who always find those scenes to be superfluous, so mileage varies. I don't want to give too much away because there are so many interesting plot elements and you get to see so many characters. You get to see Simon, Marcus, Hank, and everybody is just so beautifully characterized. So if you're interested in exploring a sub-pairing within the Detroit Become Human fandom and just seeing all the characters really be worked through, as well as an interesting action-packed plot, well then, this is definitely the fic for you. Next, for 3, we are switching gears yet again and hopping into a completely different fandom. Now, for this, we're gonna have to go into an updated version of a classic fandom. I'm talking about The Man from U.N.C.L.E. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was originally a TV series that ran in the mid to late 60s, and it was very popular for at least the first 2 seasons of its run, though some tonal shifts did drive some fans away in later seasons, but it still did have a dedicated fan base, and it is actually one of the early Slash producing fandoms. It is producing Slash fiction and works and zines alongside Star Trek and the Wild Wild West. However, both the Wild Wild West and Man from U.N.C.L.E. didn't have the same longevity or reach that Star Trek ended up having, although there are those who still very fondly remember their early classic shipping days. For many, this series faded into the background, and so many were surprised to learn that the Guy Ritchie Man from U.N.C.L.E. film was actually based on an older TV series. However, this reboot proved that the shippability was still alive and strong because it very much reignited interest in this fandom. It has fans all its own, classic fans, and fans who have been drawn to the classic world because of this new work. So, what are we dealing with? Well, the dominant pairing for this fandom is Napoleon and Ilya, just like it was for the classic pairing. However, with the addition of Gabby, who brings the female element into it in a way that the girl from U.N.C.L.E. never did in the original series, there are some who are exploring a different type of pairing. That's right, we're talking about the OT3. This fic is called An Interrupted Vacation by Impertinence, and it is 1 chapter, word count 16,410. This is a getting together fic. It is also a mission fic and a kidnap fic, with them being the kidnappees. It is a fic exploring how all 3 of these characters begin to realize that they are attracted to each other and that they have chemistry, and that they all fit better together. As the Guy Ritchie film is so action-based and focused a lot on quips, a lot of the character development and introspection tends to be pushed aside or happens so quickly that not a lot of people can focus on it. So a lot of fics in this fandom are expansions or missing scenes, or as in this case, working through what characters are really thinking and giving them backstories. This one is particularly Gabby-centric, as people feel that while Gabby was an interesting character, she definitely needed to pull a bit more focus. So if you love OT3s and enjoyed all 3 of these characters and couldn't really decide how you wanted to see them paired, or if you were already shipping all 3, this is definitely the fic for you. It's fun, lighthearted, gets you into all the different headspaces, and is just a very pleasant read. Mild smut warning. For number 4, we're going to get Gen. It's a Gen rec. And again, we're hopping fandoms. It's time to go over to Bookdom, the book fandom. Today's outing takes us over to a classic children's novel, The Neverending Story, written by Michael Ende, published in 1979 and translated into English in 1983, with the film version that many people are more familiar with being released in 1984. The Neverending Story is a beloved work for many in the way that it works through such mature adult themes in an accessible and fun way. Themes such as the importance of imagination, creativity, and self-confidence, all wrapped up in an easily accessible and fun narrative. Of course, one of the important messages of the book is the power of reading. Now, some may be wondering, what exactly do works in this fandom look like? Well, of course, you have your standard pairing fics, but there's also different types of works, ones that continue along the lines of the main thematic elements of the novel, or to a smaller extent the film. Although the film, especially the first one, does do a good job of illustrating the themes in question. The second one does a bit of a poorer job, but is still a fun film. Both films are based upon the book. The first on the first half, the second on the second half. The fic we are going to be discussing here is called The Ceremony of Passing by Yisrael. It is one chapter, word count 4,846. It deals with an adult Bastian Balthasar Bucks trying to pass on the love of reading to the next generation, the internet generation. It chronicles his work with the childlike Empress and how he helps her find people that will be drawn to the never-ending story, hence continuing its narrative and bringing the love of reading, imagination, and creativity to an all-new generation, while updating it and keeping up with the times. It's not a technology bashing fic by any means, simply a fic working through how these things can coexist and work together and actually bolster each other. It's actually a feel-good aged up fic, which does not always happen. A lot of times these fics deal with the angst of middle age and the loss of youth, but no, not this one. This one's about finding your purpose and being happy and sharing a positive experience that happened to you with others. So if you really loved the themes being worked through in the original novel and you're curious as to how they could be applied to a more modern setting, then this is definitely a work to check out. Also, yay for more Gen fic. Finally, for my original recs for Fic 5, we have another Gen fic, and it's gonna take us to a fandom that a lot of people have forgotten about. We're gonna go and hop over to the Aladdin animated series fandom. For yes, Aladdin had an animated series, and it was quite well received at the time. It actually had 86 episodes. It's easy to forget about because Disney has this habit of not releasing its series in a purchasable form and not always re-airing them after they have finished, so it can be quite difficult to track down older series. Aladdin was quite a successful outing for Disney. It was part of the much heralded Disney animation renaissance, and following that there was a direct-to-video sequel, The Return of Jafar, 2 years later in 1994, as Aladdin had been released in 1992. Following the release of The Return of Jafar, there came this animated series, and indeed it was actually supposed to lead into the third film. That did not end up happening. The animated series actually holds up for the most part. It has some good episodes and some memorable characters, one of those being the villain, Mosenrath. There was a lot of love within fandom for Mosenrath. Indeed, this fic deals with him directly. This fic is called Asylum by Celeste Goodchild. It is one chapter, word count 17,490. This fic deals with Mosenrath and only Mosenrath. Aladdin and Jasmine and Genie need not apply. So if you love works from one character's perspective dealing solely with their issues, well, this is definitely one for you. This is written as if Mosenrath was writing a letter or a diary entry, and it works through him going back over his life and backstory. It's quite unique and full of very interesting details, well thought out, and it really sucks you in. It is written in first person, which is not for everybody, but in my opinion, it is a very well put together and pulled off first person piece. Mosenrath was actually supposed to be the focus of the third Aladdin film. There was supposed to be a reveal that Aladdin and Mosenrath were brothers, hence their closeness and character design. This did not end up coming to fruition, and instead we were graced with Aladdin and the King of Thieves, which introduced Aladdin's dilf of a father, Cassim. So, I guess it's still a win-win. For those of you who are interested in taking a look at the Aladdin animated series fandom, this is one for you. Even if you're not in the fandom, this can be a really good introduction to the characters and the characterization. It also has a bit more of a grittier, angsty tone, which actually works for Mozenrath, who can be quite intense at times. And now for our 6th rec, this is the fan rec. This one comes to us from Denial Hafizuddin Saiful Nuris. I apologize if that is not the correct pronunciation. And they said, a really simple but good fic I have is from the Riverdale fandom called The City is Contagious. And it's actually of a rare pair, Jughead Jones and Veronica Lodge. It's not revolutionary by any means, but it's beautifully solid as the writer Izzy Business excels at introspection and has an amazing grasp on characterization. Heads up for some potentially spoilery Riverdale images. So of course, I saw the words rare pair and had to check it out. Now this is not the rarest of the rare pairs out there. For those who are in many fandoms, you know that there are some rare pairs that have only one work. However, within the context of Riverdale, this is indeed a rarer pairing. This is This City is Contagious by Izzy Business. 3 chapters, word count 18,865. We're dealing with the gang when they are in college/university, and how they are getting on with their lives, and also how they are now relating to each other as they age and mature. It deals with Jughead meeting up with Veronica in a new city in a new context, and finding that they have more in common than they first thought, and that actually they're a pretty good match. This is a fun one for those who have ever entertained the possibility of this pairing, be it in the TV series or in the comics, as some feel that Jughead and Veronica actually have a kind of snarky chemistry, and this fic plays upon that concept in spades. These two are very much snark masters, nay cynical soulmates. And it works. It really works. This fic just finds a way to make this pairing work. Sometimes you come across a fic like that works through a pairing that you may not have thought of or that you may not have found to be feasible, but something about the tone and the writing style and the plot just make it all come together. So if you're interested in entertaining the possibility that these two could be a pairing that you could enjoy, well then this is a fic to check out. And thank you so much for the rec. I very much enjoyed it, and I hope that all of you do too. So this has been yet another Fic Rec Friday. Please, as always, continue to leave your recs down below. I'm very much enjoying reading them, and I can't wait to suggest more to you next week. If you check anything out, please do let me know if you liked it, didn't like it, what was your favorite, all of that good stuff down there in the comments below. And of course, just in general, let me know how you're enjoying this series. Thank you as always for taking some time every day to spend it discussing fandom with me. I always appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid, especially a Rex vid. There are, as always, many more videos coming soon, and I can't wait to share them with you. And until then, let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side. There are, as always, many more videos coming soon, another vote ongoing right now at the time of this recording, and of course, please do stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.